Hey, this is Skylar Vincent Haler, and I'm about to give my interview to Pete. Once he gets out here, he's just running a few minutes late. Probably not going to be able to have the video on, but I will be recording our interview. I just wanted to be able to show you kind of the stuff that this place has. This is Heritage Farms, and this is where the primary operation of Pete's Master Recycler Composter program's at. And so I wanted to be able to show kind of a bit of the farm and what it looks like. So I'm going to flip the camera here, if I can. It's a gorgeous place. So I'm going to be talking to Pete now, but just wanted to show a little bit of, what it looks like around here and kind of prepare for what I'm going to be talking about and kind of the questions I'm going to be asking. Well, just for introductions, explain a little bit of who you are and what you do for the county. What is it that your position exactly means? Just for a little bit of an introduction.
Okay. Well, I work for Clark County Public Health, and our mission with our program, the Master Compost and Recycling program, is about waste reduction. And that's kind of a big topic. And I don't know if you have other questions on that.
I do, but I definitely would love to hear, how you feel about it,
Yes.
just so that we get a pretty good grasp of what the program is so that it preps for the questions that I'll ask.
Totally. So, we've got kind of a three-pronged approach. One is to get a kind of elite core of trainees who come through the program once a year. And that's about 30 people that we train. So they are like our Marine Corps. They're in, hopefully, train the trainer, then they can go out and take that knowledge and really spread it out through the community.
Cool.
They also give back to the program and volunteer and help the program work. So they have payback hours.
Okay.
So that's kind of that's our key training component. And then we also do workshops, which is what I'm cleaning up right now. So last night we had a workshop on green cleaning products, safer, healthier products. And so those are folks that are definitely interested in green living, sustainability, protecting the environment, may not have the full commitment to become a master composter recycler. And so we hold those in the spring and the fall, and we have 4 different topic areas we focus on. Clearly backyard composting, composting food scraps with worms, these greener, clean products, and then just household waste reduction tips in general, how to make less garbage in your home. So that's our second tier, and then our final one is just really outreaching to the general public, who may or may not be that interested, but we can get 30 seconds, a minute of their time, answer questions, try to plant some seeds.
And that's just really, really cool, and it's just unfortunate that it does not get the publicity that it gets. So that's kind of my whole intention with the interview is, bring up some of those questions, but to be able to reach out to my colleague. That's my hope, so that I can be able to get more traffic along your way, more people in here, more people helping out.
Yes.
But to kind of distinct your first tier, the 30 people that get into the program, how does that differ from just volunteers? Do they pay to be in the program, or do they get college credits, or is it leading to work? How does that work?
There's no charge to go through the training program. We do have typically quite a few americore that come through, and so they are gaining skills, and it's definitely a resume builder, being a master composter recycler and being certified. I think that just in terms of from a student standpoint?
Just in general.
Or in general?
Yeah. You know, just trying to be able to distinct that between what's just, you know, a random volunteer that comes in, or people that really want to commit to this program and be able to get the skills. What happens with that? What
so okay, well then that's a really good question. And I think the difference for us is we are trying to create more of a community of like-minded folks who also want to, you know, try to walk the talk and, you know, think globally but act locally. And so
love that phrase. I'll definitely bold and underline that in the interview.
You know, we can definitely plug volunteers in who have, you know, sometimes we work with high school kids who have, you know, senior projects who need to do a community service aspect. I mean, we have plenty of work and kind of on-the-job learning, like, you know, as you did, you know, emptying the compost buckets.
That's right.
Building a lasagna garden. All that stuff's really great practical knowledge.
Love the term lasagna garden.
And so, you know, we are this kind of two-headed, maybe even three-headed organization where, you know, we have a real group that's gardening focused. You know, they're outdoors, they want to learn how to compost, get their hands dirty. And so that is definitely a big hook to our program. But then we're really trying to get folks into waste reduction, not wasting so much food, making sure they know exactly what to put in the recycle bin. And then the other piece, so that's the second one. The third one are these toxics, you know, getting these toxics out of your house.
Yeah. Figuring
out, you know, that we are surrounded by a lot of, you know, whether it's candles, you might have heavy metal in your wicks and petroleum, things that you're actually lighting and breathing. The air fresheners people have in their bathrooms often are, again, petroleum product based. And you can use coffee grounds and a nylon stocking to hang on your car mirror to absorb, you know, that absorbs odors, so you don't have to use those stinky air fresheners that also are toxic. So we're surrounded by toxics, so that's another piece we haven't quite delved into other than just some simple cleaning products. But we really want to try to get people to live and be more healthy, especially now that we're part of public health.
So you weren't always part of public health? This was just kind of this initiative that blossomed, and then eventually the county was like, hey, you do a lot of really cool stuff here, be part of our public health.
That it didn't quite go down that way.
Okay.
But it would have been cool if it did.
Okay.
We were initially in Public Works, and then we went to Environmental Services, and then they dissolved that department. So they put us in the next logical place.
Public health.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it works.
This hopeful influx of volunteers, what would they be utilized in larger numbers? Like, rather than just how I just came in and like I was just one guy and we had to get through all those coffee grounds. What would happen if you got a larger influx of volunteers?
Yeah, I think, you know, if we have a larger influx of volunteers, especially around certain events. One thing we've been working on, for instance, is the Clark County Fair. So if we had a group of folks that wanted to, you know, represent master compost recyclers and the waste reduction message, they could even be kind of an honorary master composter recycler. Maybe we do a short training specific to that. They could do outreach during the county fair. You know, that's a massive outreach opportunity for the general public that we have not figured out an effective way to do. You know, folks are there to see the monster trucks, eat their fried foods, go on the rides, have fun. They don't necessarily want to learn about the environment. But it is a big community event, so that's one way we can tap people in. The other and easiest way, as you alluded to, is everyone lives near a cafe. And especially students know about cafes.
Oh yeah.
So we have a mission that zero coffee grounds should be going to the landfill. And we rely on volunteers to network with those cafes and collect that material and bring it into us, or use it themselves, or find people that want it. So there are a lot of initiatives. Another big one that we're trying to work on is called community compost, where folks would have community gardens. They'd have a farm like we're at today. It might be a farmer with land, and figure out ways to get people to bring their organics there. And then, have it done, have someone there to basically turn that stuff back into compost. And they're called community composting centers.
So instead of having like a small composting equipment in your backyard, you could just bring it to this location, this hopefully central location like Heritage Farm, and being able to give in your composting material to be composted.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And in that case, there's a lot more that can be done. You can go through next door, pick up your neighbor's stuff.
That's
start to create community.
Really cool to be able to utilize the technology on hand to bridge that outreach that we're struggling to have.
So, as a composter, you always need a nitrogen, they call it green, protein, to feed your compost, and that's what allows the critters to reproduce. And so having a steady source, there's grass, which is great, but, it's only in the spring.
It's only so much, yeah.
There's only so much. So having food waste, which we don't really have an option for right now, because it can't be collected curbside, that is something that I personally have buckets at my house, and folks who don't have the ability to compost for one reason or another, they collect all their food scraps, they fill a bucket, they leave it in my garage, they take an empty bucket, and then I have a little sign that they flip around so I know when the bucket's full. And so I have my own customers who are dropping off stuff. So again, and then it's building community.
And this is one guy doing this.
This one guy.
One person that just, I need to make this impact. I need to see the change. I need to have the change that I want to see.
Yeah, so I'm operating right now. I just got rid of 2 worm bins, but I have 5 worm bins at my house.
And how large were those bins?
They're different size bins, but typically I can feed them about 5 gallons of food waste a week. And then I have another compost bin that I'm putting in probably another 5 gallons. And those weigh, 20 pounds a piece. So that's 40 pounds a week, 50 weeks, that's a ton. So
Yeah.
I'm one guy managing a ton of food waste with some pretty simple systems. And so if we had 1,000 people doing that, that'd be 1,000 tons kept out of there. Or if you scaled up and you could do 10 tons, that'd be 10,000 tons. So the ability is there, and it doesn't take that much.
So it sounds like this is kind of out of your pocket. Just for your program in general, how are operation and material costs covered? Is it mostly just out of pocket? Is there any sort of funding?
Yeah, so when it comes to funding, we're pretty much a grassroots operation. When we compost, it's all scavenged materials, so that never costs us money. We do have some expenses, buckets and spray bottles for green cleaning kits. We are trying to come up with a lease a worm bin program where we'll have worm bins that are actually a little more technologically, they function better than just the Rubbermaid tote setups that we've got, which are kind of junky. So we're looking at some of those purchases, and our money comes when people go to the transfer station to get rid of their garbage. There is a charge that comes back to the county to reduce waste. So similar to like a cigarette tax.
Right.
We don't want people to make garbage, so we have an extra fee.
And that's your only source of funding?
There is some money that comes from the state through a grant. That's a grant on petroleum products.
Okay.
But that grant's not always available.
If you take it away and you're left high and dry?
We wouldn't know. The program is pretty well funded because, as I said, mostly it's staff driven. And so the staff are funded through these tip fee, transfer station, garbage charges. If that makes sense.
So despite how little you guys get, you're still able to produce all this good of the community.
Yeah, so we typically, full-time employee is 2,080 hours, and that's about what we get with our volunteer corps. So we're basically leveraging a full-time employee with our volunteer hours, and then we grow our own worms, which we share with the community. So that's a savings that we do. We've been reusing our buckets, 5-gallon buckets from the Portland airport for our coffee to compost program. And, as a waste reduction organization, we also are very conscientious about, not wasting money.
So it sounds like it's less about funds itself and more about just who you can get to help that inhibits this program in any way.
I think that I think it's a similar situation where if we go out to our compost demo site where you've been, and I have 80 buckets of coffee grounds, which equals a ton, and they're starting to get moldy, so I figure out a way to put those to use. And we either will build lasagna gardens, we'll put some in our compost bins, we can just top dress as a mulch, and so all that material gets used. If all of a sudden I had 80 hours of volunteer power available to me, we figure out a way to put those 80 hours to use.
So it sounds like whether you did get more government backing or not, what's more important is just getting more manpower.
The master composter recyclers, we have a role, and that primary role is education of the public and also trying to teach people. And so we still need a more holistic approach. Let's say we're dealing with food scraps. The master composter recyclers aren't going to come and figure out how to manage the county's 60,000 tons of food scraps going in the trash every year, which is just wrong, because that's a resource. It's something. If someone just delivered me 60,000 tons, I'd open a compost facility and make a lot of money. It's just a matter of how do you get it out of the garbage to a user. So the master composters can definitely play a role, where we can advocate for change, we can educate folks, and then we can provide technical assistance. But we're not driving trucks, we're not doing collection, we're not writing policy, and so it is a balance. It's going to take a lot of partner efforts, and then somehow our whole solid waste environmental outreach division and the county as a whole would need to chart out some strategic plan, and then the master composter recyclers would play a role in that.
But it just seems like for such a little investment, you can not only be able to provide a service, but then be able to make money off of that service that could then be further grown into the community, into our county. But it seems as though there's not this reception to be able to make this effort on government hands. that there's so much that, you know, people can do, but there's got to be, like you said, there's got to be that start of an initiative. There's got to be that start of getting the policies made, so we can be able to make this process as easy for everyone as possible to get all those food scraps, for example, take it somewhere and be able to utilize that compost, that food compost, make it into something.
Yeah, and one thing we haven't been able to evolve into yet, but it certainly is something we do, which is creating these healthy communities that are resilient. And so for us, for instance, to be thinking about managing food waste, you know, getting more expensive trucks on the road that are, you know, burning fossil fuels, and then taking that material 120 miles away out of our county, someplace else, to be turned into organic material that then is no longer used in our community. We're wasting so many opportunities and resources in those kinds of approaches. And so what I would really like to see the master composter recyclers be able to do is steer some of the conversation and really around these organic wastes, the 60,000 tons of food waste.
So finding a better method to be able to get these food wastes than, say, expanding upon the waste and recycling programs that we already have.
Yeah.
So less big trucks taking it out of our communities and not being able to utilize this compost, and trying to keep it more intimate.
Yeah, and ideally, you know, we're volunteer driven. You know, I think there's a role for business, there's a role for government, maybe a role for nonprofits. So somehow to address, you know, come together and address that issue. One thing that I am excited about is that the more we go out and teach people how to compost, we're creating the infrastructure for healthier plantings, you know, ideally healthier gardens. We have such an amazing climate here in the Northwest, you know, to try to get more victory gardens. So we haven't had the success yet. There's a Master Gardener program that's very popular and has been around for a long time. So integrating our programs, at least having our programs talk to each other, that would be helpful. But one thing that I have learned that's very interesting is compost is not soil.
Right.
Soil, sand, silt, and clay. So you're getting people to understand what soil is. I mean, here we are paving over so much soil, and some of the best soil anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, stuff that came from the Missoula floods. People don't even understand that, and that's not our job. But you know, if the local politicians, the planners, you know, if we can understand our need for soil, and so if we're going to be paving over all this soil, then maybe there's a way we could have a stipulation, hey, you just ruined this much soil, you need to create this much soil amendment, or put this into a local compost fund, or because we are creating soil amendments, so you can take marginalized soil, put on this live super soil amendment. So again, it's all about how we develop and grow as a community, and maintaining that local, healthy, resilient public health mission of equity, social equity, really does make sense. And so we've only been in that department for 2 years, but in terms of disease prevention, community health, these are all ways we can really make a difference. And again, I'm one guy running workshops, turning compost piles, training 30 people a year, and I don't have the time or the bandwidth to be
Yeah, that's why I want to see this program expand and grow, and just trying to understand what the difficulties it has, and despite those difficulties, how resilient that you're able to maintain for this public good, this service that you provide. It's utterly amazing, and I'm hoping that with all this, with me understanding how you interact with local governments, being able to see what is slowing this down, what is going to be helping, so that, you know, in my small way, I can be able to steer more people into this program. So hopefully you're not getting more of those days where you got a month's worth of coffee grounds, literal ton of coffee grounds, and you're like, well, I gotta make this into compost all by myself. That's just really, it disappoints me to see that, you know, one guy that has so much love for this county, that it took me, you know, so long to be able to become part of it, but finally moving up here and loving it more than anywhere else. So just seeing the love that you have, just wanting to see this change is so inspiring, and I'm hoping that through sharing this, getting at least a couple more ears listening about the good that even just one person can make, the kind of impact it does, and that hopefully creates that cascading effect that sounds like you're trying so hard to create.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add or put in the article at all, or?
Well, you know, we definitely have access, especially with social media, and you know, there's a lot of different ways that students especially can get involved to help support getting our messaging out. And so, you know, right now we have a Facebook page, and you know, it's pretty minimal, but that is a big way to grow a movement. And so we are looking at you know, how do we get better video, how do we do, you know, better content, and then how do you get that message out to people effectively.
I think this is a great start, and hopefully to be able to keep promoting more and more students like myself to be able to do the stuff that we know that we can do. We know how to work with social media, we know technology, we know how to make this. It's such a simple, just take a day of what you do, and let other people know as much as you can, I feel is one of the, just something that would grasp people's attentions, because it grasped mine. Yeah. After working with so many programs, that this is the one that stuck out to me. This is the one that's like, there needs to be more attention. There needs to be more people going through this.
Cardboard topped with compost that we made out of coffee, shredded paper, pet fur. So you can see that you can actually create a garden from garbage. That's a garbage garden.
Garbage garden.
We did the same thing. I don't know if you were here when we did this, but we did the cardboard, we did
Yeah.
the sticks, and then we layered the stuff on top. So that garden is growing out of just pure compost and garbage.
That's really cool. And I remember this was like almost as tall as I was, these mounds, and how you've already like gone through and get it to this little.
I don't know what's going on here, but there's just so much kinds of life.
Whoa.
And
It's really cool. I want to identify that, because I think there was one over there too.
Yeah, just yesterday. These were like a yellow.
Yellow. Pete is amazing. He's always on the move. He's making that difference. But yeah, this is Heritage Farms composting station. Well, because we got one really awesome dude that was like, hey, there's something we can do with all this.
This is all coffee ground mulch.
Oh yeah.
This I just planted because somebody gave me a bunch of these starts.
Ooh.
All this, I harvested 5 gallons of that vermicompost from that tray system. So you can see all this, and you don't have to till the stuff. It all naturally goes into the ground, just like in a forest. You know, the leaves fall, the critters bring it down.
Oh, that's so straightforward.
This one, I was just digging around in here, but yeah, stick your hand in there.
Yeah, look at that.
Go right down here.
You can't
touch
really
that in there?
see it, but ooh, how hot that is. How warm that's.
And this was all garbage. So I mean, this is like primo stuff that you can just turn into compost, soil amendment yourself. Smells good. A little bit of ammonia.
Just a little bit. It'll be fine.
So where do you want to pick?
I think I'm gonna back up here, have a nice photo, try to encapsulate everything, probably from the edge of that field.
Cardboard topped with compost that we made out of coffee.